You're with Julian on the Brown Note and a review of the It horror film Weapons, which is the second film by actor-director Zach Cregger, whose film Barbarian, or Barbarians, last year drew a lot of praise and I said was overrated, but still a lot of fun. I'd say this one, again, it's got enormous acclaim, but I'm not quite there with it. I would say that it improves on the predecessor in quite a lot of ways. We're in a really interesting period for horror for the last 15 years. Most of the most interesting films seem to have come from this horror world. And obviously this year we've had Sinners being held up as Film of the Year again. I thought that was, in a similar way to this one actually, was a bit overrated, but still really good watch and essential watch. This one has a very chilling opening salvo, which is Julia Garner's a teacher, and she's a teacher from the rainbow crowd, kind of. It's sort of inferred that she's, on that side of politics and life and so on. She turns up to her class of, I guess, 10-year-olds, and one child is in the classroom. We then learn that at 2:17 in the morning of that day, the other 17 children all ran out of their homes at exactly the same time, being caught on CCTV, running off into the distance. And the opening part of the film is basically her being blamed for the fact that all her children went missing, and the fact that there's no indication as to what happened to these missing children. And there's one child left in the class, and it all seems a bit strange. It's a film that happens in chapters. So we get the first chapter is the Julia Garner teacher, and then it moves on to the dad, which is Josh Brolin, of one of the missing children. And everything sort of concertinas back on itself. So it's not a direct timeline per se, but we'll join the next character at an earlier point to where we left off with the previous one. And we go through like Benedict Wong as the school principal, and so on. We go through all these different characters, showing a different angle on what's going on. I felt like Barbarian was a lot of good ideas that didn't really go anywhere. I thought the whole Airbnb thing at the start was great, really interesting, and they just killed the character off, and it was just like, well, what was the point in half this film? And then it went really, really gonzo. So it had some really interesting stuff in, like this 1970s serial killer and the monster in the basement, but it was a huge mess. I think he's done a lot better this time to make everything of one film. But one thing I think he has done a bit, which he did in the previous film, and what a lot of directors seem to do now, is throw up a lot of heady ideas and not convert them. So we get, like, the Julia Garner character is a good example. There's like the notion that she's a drinker and she's a liberal and has funny hair and all of that. They're kind of superficial, and a lot of the ideas here are kind of superficial. So he throws up some interesting paradigms about the world and just doesn't follow through on them, which is kind of what he did in the previous film. It's just a lot classier in the way it's put together, which is a good thing. I think he's improved quite a bit in the filmmaking. And a lot of the characters are very underdeveloped. Josh Brolin's dad is a non-event. There's no interesting quality to him, and he's exactly the kind of guy that could play that role. In fact, the film that I did think about a lot here was Prisoners, the Denis Villeneuve film. That was amazing, and that had so much tension about these children going missing. Here it doesn't really feel like that big a deal, all these children just going missing, everyone sort of carrying on. It just felt a little bit like there were no stakes involved in what was happening. There was certainly some very good moments. The Benedict Wong moment was excellent, and there are some excellent characters. But it's actually the, who is she? The aunt. Who's the aunt? Well, they don't have her on here, but the woman that plays the aunt is absolutely magnificent. She appears after the halfway stage. Gladys. Gladys has already become a superhero in the horror movie. Well, rightly so. Amy Madigan. No, she plays Justin, Paul, James, and Gladys. Yeah, Amy Madigan plays Gladys. Gladys is the elderly aunt that no one seems to have seen for 15 years that arrives in the house of the child that is the one remaining child. Her character is magnificent. It reminded me a bit of the Nicolas Cage character in the equally overrated Longlegs. It's such a jarring and incredible character, but actually a lot better than the Nicolas Cage Longlegs character. She's phenomenal. I'm not surprised they're developing another movie for her because her character is amazing. There is some very, very strong elements to the movie, and the denouement here, whereas Barbarian had a very gonzo denouement that kind of undercut every single aspect of the film and made it all very silly. There's a very silly moment here, which is the final quarter of the film, which is outstanding. It's the best part of the film. It is so funny and so outrageous and so off-the-wall crazy. But it really does work this time around. I don't agree that it is one of the best films of the year. Like with Sinners, I think that there's enough downtime here and enough undeveloped ideas and characters that would warrant further inspection. And I felt like, there's what could have been a dread-fueled exercise with all these young children going missing and their parents being in shock about it all could have carried a little bit more dramatic weight. It certainly tries to be funny at times, but it's not a comedy. It's, they could have done both. It just didn't seem to matter that much. I thought the end was quite dark as well. So overall, it's a good watch. It's a must watch, and it's not quite great. 7.5 out of 10 for Weapons. And